Now, you may have heard already, but Jonathan Majors has been found guilty as the result of a trial concerning him and his ex-girlfriend, where his ex-girlfriend accused him of assaulting her. And due to this, Jonathan Majors is facing jail time up to a year, and with his sentencing being in February, as well as Marvel firing him from the role of Kang, who was basically supposed to be their big bad. And with this video, I'm just going to kind of be covering how exactly we got here, and does the evidence really point to him being guilty? Because ever since this was first reported back in March, there has been a lot of speculation between what actually happened and what didn't happen. Now, this whole event took place in March 25th of this year. And according to this article from The Hollywood Reporter, Grace Jabari, the ex-girlfriend in question, took to the witness stand for the first 4 days of the trial, where she said that Majors had caused the injuries during an altercation in a car. Now, this all started in March 25th, when Jonathan Majors actually called 911 on his ex-girlfriend, Grace Jabari, who was unconscious in their apartment. However, when the police got there, they ended up arresting Majors after they found injuries on Jabari, including a laceration behind her ear and a fractured finger. She testified that the incident took place in a car where she saw a text from Major's phone that read, "Oh, how I wish to be kissing you." And in response to this, Jabari tried to snatch the phone from Majors, who then tried to pry the phone from her finger, which resulted in it being broken. But she also alleges that he grabbed her arm and right hand, twisted her forearm, and struck her head to get the phone away from her. And when this went to trial, Majors was faced with 4 different charges, with the charges that he was found guilty on being 1 count of assault in the 3rd degree and 1 count of harassment in the 2nd degree. However, he was not found guilty of intentional assault in the 3rd degree, as well as aggravated harassment in the 2nd degree. Basically, what this means is that while he did harm her, it wasn't necessarily intentional, as more of a kind of lashing out. However, with the count of assault and harassment, we are looking to up to a year in jail time for Mr. Majors. However, this apparently wasn't the first time that Majors harmed his ex-girlfriend. Now, this is alleged, and we don't know exactly what took place, but there were text messages that came up as evidence in the court that suggested that Majors might have been aggressive towards Mr. Bari in the past. Now, the text messages are from September of 2022, and the text messages basically boiled down to Majors trying to dissuade her from going to a hospital after she suffered an injury to her head. Now, I'm going to put the text messages up on the screen, but I am also going to read out. There is some redaction that I just can't help. This is what was released to the public. It's just fake, and I fear you have no perspective of what could happen if you could go to the hospital. They will ask you questions, and as I don't think you actually protect us, it could lead to an investigation even if you do lie and they suspect something. Okay, first off, weird grammar in there, very hard to read and understand, but obviously he is afraid that an investigation is going to go on based on an injury linked to her head. I don't know why exactly he would be afraid of an investigation if he had nothing to do with it, so that is definitely a red flag there. And she replies, "I would tell the doctor I bumped my head if I go. I'm going to give it 1 more day, but I can't sleep and I need some stronger painkillers, that's all. Why would I want to tell them what really happened when it's clear I want to be with you?" Now, this is something that shows up a lot when it comes to the evidence that has been presented so far with this case, and it really makes Jonathan Majors look like a manipulator. And we will see that in multiple accounts, and it is something I'm going to bring up when we talk about people's defense of Jonathan Majors. But something we're going to see a lot with this is Jonathan using very, very common manipulator tactics to basically keep her quiet and to keep her under his control. I feel like you want to be together, as in to not embarrass yourself for everything you said to your friends and family. Last night I considered unaliving myself versus coming home. You said you needed love last night, and I put my feelings aside and tried to give you that. I need love too, or maybe I'm such a monster and horrible man that I don't deserve it and should just unalive myself. This way of existence is miserable. Now, I'm not going to say exactly where his headspace was at this given moment, but the fact that he is trying to dissuade her from going to the hospital with a head injury and fear of investigation and is now talking about harming himself really does not paint the perfect picture of a man who is innocent in this regard, who had nothing to do with this. And Something that is also pretty common with manipulators like this is that they will often use the threat of harming themselves to keep the person that they are abusing in line. In a way of being like, oh, don't do this thing that would hurt me, or else I'll hurt myself even more. It's common manipulator tactics, and it sadly works. Because after this, she does reply, I will go to the doctor if you don't feel safe with me doing so, or don't trust me to. I promise I would never mention you, but I understand your fear. Which to me really spells out that this woman was very aware of what would happen if she came forward with her story, but instead decided not to because she knew that that if she went to the doctor with his head injury, it would be linked to Majors and his career would probably fail after this. With Majors replying back saying, you can't reject love if there is no real love. It's just lip service. I gave you love last night and this morning before I got out of bed. When you got up, you were not full of love at all. I didn't feel it at all. You could have just given me a hug and walked close to me or asked me if you could give me a hug, not the other way around. It works both ways. I will probably mill myself. I mean, I can get away with that. He doesn't actually say it. It's not really contemplating anymore. And again, this is manipulation right here, saying, oh, you don't really love me. Like, oh, you don't really love me. You don't really care about me. You didn't give me a hug in the morning. You don't really care about me. And I wanted to say this towards the end, but I cannot understand how people can read this, or apparently read this, and still see him as being in the right when he is doing very manipulative tactics. I'm a monster. I'm a horrible man, not capable of love. I am unaliving myself soon. I've already put things in motion. And basically her reply to this is basically just begging him not to do so, which I doubt he was going to at all. It just feels very manipulative. We also have this audio right here. Now I would play the audio, but honestly it is very disturbing to listen to, and I'm not going to play it for you. If you want to listen to it, go out and listen to it. Or if you want to read the transcript, go and read the transcript. But it is honestly disgusting to listen to because it just comes from this man who has such a big ego of himself, and he is just shouting down into this woman for not being as good of a woman to him as he wants her to be, even saying that she needs to be more like Cornette Scott King, who is Martin King's wife, and Michelle Obama, Barack Obama's wife. And it all kind of comes from Majors just not being happy that she is going out and partying, like going to clubs and stuff. And like, if you don't want a girl who just likes going to clubs and having fun, then I don't know, maybe find someone else who doesn't and will be that woman you're looking for. Like, he just is just screaming down to her when she just is trying to be herself. And I know I've kind of gone away from what happened in March, but I just want to kind of bring up the situation as a bit of more just context to why exactly, or at least more than likely, why he was found guilty on those two accounts. However, there has been evidence shown that following this altercation, Grace did go out partying. And a lot of people are trying to use this as an excuse of why Majors is innocent, especially with people trying to focus on, oh, how her hand didn't seem broken, she didn't seem that worried about it. But to me, this isn't really decisive evidence. This did get brought up in court with Grace saying that she didn't want to go home to the empty apartment that they shared and would rather just go out clubbing with some strangers. And while they were out that night, they ended up running into Majors again, and Grace tried to talk to him, which ended up with Majors basically trying to run away from her. And after that, it's a bit unclear. My guess is that Jabari ended up going back to the apartment and was, kind of drunk, became unconscious, and then he called the cops on her. Now, footage of Jabari and the club and also her chasing after Jonathan Majors has been released to the public or leaked to the public. However, a lot of times when victims are assaulted, sometimes they are not likely to go to the police right away, and with this case, there is evidence to support that with the September 2022 text messages. And with Grace chasing down Majors, this is also an example of someone who has been abused rushing back to their abuser because there has been some form of codependency based on the abuser's actions. And again, going back to the text messages, there is obviously that sort of manipulation going on that is resulting in Grace going back to Majors regardless of how he treats her. And a lot of people are trying to use Jonathan Majors running away from her as a gotcha to prove his innocence, when it's not the gotcha that you think it is, if you do believe that. as it could just be another form of manipulation that Jonathan is trying to use against her, or it's just him just not wanting to deal with her at that certain moment in time. And to me, I honestly don't know how people can be apparently following the story and honestly think that Majors is still in the right. Unless, of course, it comes out of a lack of knowledge of how manipulation works, which oftentimes people don't really know, at least from what's been shown on social media. And I know some of you may be asking, well, how will this affect his role at Kang? I don't give a shit. I'm gonna be honest. I really don't care. But obviously, this all led to a 2-week trial in which Jonathan Majors was found guilty. And basically, while the jury did not find him guilty on doing anything intentional, they did come to the conclusion that he did assault her and should be found guilty on that. Now, again, I don't think a lot of people have been covering this very well, just from the reactions that I have been seeing on social media, especially TikTok. But if you're going to TikTok for your news coverage and your trial coverage, I'm sorry, but there's no helping you. And in my opinion, the best way to explain this whole situation is basically from a quote from Manhattan District Attorney Alan Bragg, who said in a statement that with all the evidence presented during the trial, that it all illustrated a cycle of psychological and emotional abuse and escalating patterns of coercion far too common amongst the many intimate partner violence cases. But basically, this is what this has all come to. Now, I really haven't talked about it that much ever since it took place. I, again, have kind of been wanting to wait until the final decision was cast with this trial, but a lot of evidence really pointed to Jonathan Majors being guilty, despite the leaked videos that came out with Jabari in the club. And I really want people to realize that just because you see one leaked video without any other context to the situation, that does not mean someone's guilty and someone's innocent. And the only other thing I really want to say before I sign off is that I really hope that the people who want to cover this do a way better job of at least acknowledging the victim in this case. I have seen way too many people ever since this story dropped. I'm literally talking about this the night the story dropped, and the least you can do is at least look at the evidence in the articles, the reports from this story, and at least talk about it in some regard. I feel like way too many people have been just skimming over the story and just been talking about what's going to happen to the MCU, what's going to happen to the world Kang. I'm going to be honest, can you just shut up and actually care about a person instead of just your type of entertainment for 1 second? Look, I get it. You know, the MCU is a very big property that a lot of people are attached to, but for one instant, just acknowledge the victim in the circumstance, because to me, the way that people have been responding to this has just kind of been disgusting. Look, I like Marvel too, I like watching superhero movies, but I feel like for one instance, you can just kind of take yourself away and at least just give some sympathy to the person that was affected by this. So that's gonna be all for me today. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave a like down below, and I'll see y'all next time.